Right, we're ready. We're ready to go. Right, okay, news.
Oh,
Any news from Gough?
No, I haven't heard a thing archaeologically. Not a sausage. Not
Right,
not a prehistoric sausage. Nothing.
there's something there, and I just can't remember what it is. Right, Richard.
Uh, Not a lot. All I know is that the dig that took place at Fonmon,
Oh,
and they're carrying on again this summer. And
Okay.
apparently they've made some incredible finds there. Apparently the chap who was leading the dig, so they'll be digging her again well, start in late spring, I think.
Well, I'm going to say it because Gough's going to say it. This is the most important archaeological discovery ever
Oh,
in Fonmon. Ever,
Yeah,
ever,
what?
ever.
probably is.
Well, definitely. It's even bigger than anything ever. Right, Anne.
well,
Right, okay, Anne's not saying anything.
actually,
Um,
Sure.
most houses,
what are we looking at?
isn't it Norwegian houses?
Well, if you put it up further up on the screen, we'll be able to see it. No, further up, we're seeing the bloody up in the air. Right, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, they look cool.
Yeah, it's like hobbit houses, isn't it?
Hmm.
Is
Hobbits.
that the is that the new way they live in Norway?
No, they're supposed to be. Oh God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I thought it was like ancient, but they can't be ancient, can they?
No, because some of them have got double glazed windows.
Yeah.
And actually, it says Norwegian, and then someone down below says it's not Norway. So God knows, but I thought I'll show show it. So, some sort of it'd be
Yeah.
nice, wouldn't it?
It would be nice. It would be
I
nice.
think it's AI. I think it's AI.
Yeah, well,
But no,
Anne, I don't know. I don't know, Anne. I don't know.
oh, there was something about something.
Yeah, well, that's good.
London. They found another.
Yeah, we did this last week.
Oh,
Right. Okay, then. Pat, anything from you, darling?
um,
Pat looks like somebody dodgy from the
oh,
1970s because it was all. Yeah, it's fine now. We can
it came
see.
by. Woo! I don't know what was the matter. Oh, it went.
Yeah.
It went again.
it
Oh well.
went blurred. Oh, it's gone blurred.
I know. I don't know what's happening. Anyhow, on Radio 4, they were talking about these people who, dig up and find Egyptian stuff, or they find it somewhere else and then they sell it online. And
Ah,
a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're worth 30,000 or something. They want to just spend on it. But yeah, they're trying to clamp down on it because it's false.
It's,
Some of it's false, some of it's copies, some of it came from museums, and they were stolen.
yes,
I don't know what. Just sounds like
fraud.
they got to get to work on, shaping up the ancient, especially Egyptian things, and before that, the Euphrates and all that. Yeah. So
good. Now, so today I've got to I've got an important document I've got to file before 12 o'clock tonight, and I've got to get on with that. So I got to make sure that we finish at on time. So it's very important that we do that tonight. We're gonna crack straight on. Oh yeah, I was gonna mention as well. Did you know next week it's the end of the month, and therefore I've got to make the announcement. Don't forget to send your monies over for the classes. Again, it's come around so quick. So it's the usual £50 for the classes, and if you can get that over, that would be much appreciated. And also, I would like to say that some of you have already been sent the Illicit pillar that we've just had printed. We're doing it in bits and bobs. So yeah, we've got a new system. So people who have just recently renewed their money, they're getting the magazine first, and then people, yeah, don't ask. So
Yeah.
that's how we're doing it. So right,
Okay.
okay then,
Hmm.
let's crack on. So let's share the images. Share. Sunny and share. Anne, did you get that? Anne?
Sunny and share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nobody else did, but you know. Um. Right. So we got all these images on here, right? And I get power warnings on my device, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh.
But we're going to be looking at Glastonbury, Lake Village, and the one thing about Glastonbury Lake Village is it's on from what we were doing last week, and um I don't know what I said last night, and I don't know how I put it across, but somebody said that lecture was absolutely amazing. So unfortunately, it means that we can only go downhill now.
Mm.
Which is one of those things. So the way I've done this tonight is I've done it like three tiered, and what I mean by three tiered, we've got a little bit of we've got a little bit of standard stuff about Glastonbury Lake Village, and then we got some little bit more academic stuff. And then we get up to date with what current archaeology is saying about the site. And the dates after all for the Glastonbury Lake Village are a little bit all over the place. And we're now starting to look at the dendrochronology, and we've got the radiocarbon evidence. So there it is. We're looking at this sort of reened landscape. When I say reened landscape, this is what the watercourses are called, right? So to give us an idea where we are, I've dug out an Ordnance Survey map, which I've got, and basically you've got all these floodplains here, and you've got Glastonbury on the right, and there it is, the Lake Village site of, and there it is, yeah, in the middle of the screen, there. So this is, oh my God, I got the bloody stupid animals running around. The one that we looked at last week is south of Glastonbury, and this is north west of Glastonbury. And the one point to be made is to look at this landscape and see that you've got all this blue on here, right? So this is it's a huge floodplain even today. And the one point to be made about this world is the very issue of why we've got a lake village smack bang in the middle of a floodplain, right? This is something that we discussed last night, and it was getting quite heated last night. There was me and somebody else saying, you know, the lake village is there, and it's a trading post, and you know it's there deliberately, and then other people, and then you've got another sort of sub argument that, you know, people are living within these marshy, boggy landscapes to protect against wolves and other people. And then the problem is when you talk about protecting yourself within this landscape against other people, there's not many people around. So that's one word of caution with that. So if we go back, and they used to have a reconstructed building at this site as well, which is, as far as I know, is no longer there, and because they ran out of funding a few years back. So Glastonbury Lake Village, an Iron Age village. Actually, it does go back a little bit before that as well. But the one thing about this site is it does cover very much the Iron Age, and it gives us a good perspective and a good idea. It's in short, there are individual buildings, which then come together as a settlement. So if we go to the image which is there, so you can see all the mounds there, right? And gradually, bit by bit, there was a palisade around this, and the whole point is that this was like one big settlement. And as you go through the notes and you read and you think about this site, one source says, you know, there's 40 mounds there, and the other says there's 80 mounds there, right? And counting. So again, it's a man-made island, in other words, within a not so wet landscape where this is, but obviously southwest of there, it's quite wet, and in the winter months, when you do have a downpour of rain, this is completely submerged still today. So again, these are man-made platforms, man-made islands, individual islands, cranog, if you want to call them. It's a scheduled ancient monument, and here we go. Let's read out the statement, right? Let's read out the following statement. It has been described as the best preserved prehistoric village ever found in the United Kingdom. And Goff, I can't make that up. It does say this is the best preserved prehistoric village ever found in the United Kingdom, which is actually not correct, right? It
No.
should read, this is the best preserved Iron Age prehistoric village found in the UK. Saying it's the best preserved prehistoric village in the UK discounts, for example, Starcar up in the northeast, near Scarborough. That also Graham Clark's excavations in the 1940s. It also dismisses the work at Must Farm in 2015, which is remarkably well preserved. But that Must Farm is Bronze Age, and Starcar is, for example, that's a timber site as well. That for example is Mesolithic, right? So you know those are some of the best examples in their periods, and this is the best example in the Iron Age, but not the best preserved prehistoric village ever found in Britain. It does, you know, me and Goff do take the trifle with that, and it's like using the word ever always turns out a few years later to be a downed statement. So again, when we're looking at this and when we're thinking of this, did the past look like this? Did the buildings within this landscape look like this? And the answer is no. Right, the buildings may have looked like this, but within their surroundings, it looked more like buildings on top of a platform without this wonderful rich grass, and very much looking like this, right? So you could get two ideas, two theories, that this site was flooded or being constantly flooded and they abandoned it, or it was the reverse. The landscape become clogged and muddy and boggy, and it was really pointless as a settlement for trade. Now, one of the points, again, looking at the map and thinking about this map and trying to understand the map and trying to put the map into some kind of perspective, right, is thus that we got to imagine that this world was very, very different in the Iron Age. All that would be blue, except these little pillows of lake villages around the place. Now, I'm gonna check this in quite early, right? That the archaeologist Arthur Bulleid, Bulleid, it's not a name you come across, in 1892, sought to find this site and he found it. Right now, when you seek to find something, you will find it in archaeology, no doubt. If the Leakeys went to Mongolia, they would have said that it was out of Mongolia, not out of the Olduvai Gorge of Tanzania, Africa, right? When archaeologists go out looking for things, it's 9 out of 10, we usually find what we're looking for, right? Because we're focused. And therefore, if somebody else was looking for a lake village in equally boggy surrounds, they may have found one somewhere else, right? But this one was the one that because Arthur Bulleid lived in Glastonbury, so he just went wandering about and he found it. That's the way it works. And I'm not dismissing the quality and value of that sense of archaeology and seeing and the perspective of archaeology, right? And this sort of the landscape of the archaeology when you think about it as well, it was the size of a football pitch in many ways, right? Even though my measurements are slightly out for a football pitch, it was 122 meters long by 91 meters east to west. And the dates, the dates for this are very, very mixed, depending on who you read and who you want to read, right? So what's happening is that they've got they've got almost little peaty hillocks sticking out, and they're thinking, right, they stick out above the boggy, inclement sort of water and stuff. So we'll stick a building on top of it, right? And usually what we would do is lay down timber, and then clay, and then after about 20 years, your building starts to be absorbed, and you put more clay and timber. And you go on like that after generation. Every generation blames the one before. Definitely. Mike and the mechanics. It's very true that when somebody's built a building here, after a certain amount of time, it's going to sink into the muds. So, and these wooden buildings, they had circular barns, built on a clay base and occupied. This settlement may have been occupied by in excess of 200 people at any one time. So the dates that we've got will change in this presentation tonight. I will warn you, because some of the archaeologists reckon that this site dates to 250 years BC, and ends about 50 years BC. And then the likes of Arthur Bulleid argued that the site dates from 100 years BC and ended sometime around 50 years AD. Right. But the one thing as well is Arthur Bulleid is working in 1892, and he's getting into his report writing in the by about 1910. Yeah, Arthur Bulleid is actually not technically not an archaeologist, right? He's an expert in other fields, right? But he is the archaeologist working at the site, and he is the one that discovers it. He is the one that puts his life into it, and he had a novel way of working the archaeology, right? And the novel way of working the archaeology was to stare these people in their eyes from the Iron Age. And he would spend, for example, 6 months excavating, and then he would spend the other 6 months writing up the report stuff, right? So by the time he got to doing the report stuff, it was already written, which is a good archaeologist, unlike me. I'm still trying to publish stuff which is decades old because I didn't do it at the time. So artifacts uncovered include wooden and metal and pottery objects, and lots of these objects are on display in the Glastonbury High Street Museum, known as the Tribunal. So if you ever go down to Glastonbury, you've got the main high street and you've got all the main shops, and where on the south side, that's where you've got all the shops and stuff. On the north side, you've got some of the older buildings. And on the north side, that's where the Tribunal Museum actually is. And what you do, as I showed you an image last week, I showed you an image of an oak sort of hollowed out boat, which is you can actually see in that building actually. So one of the things that we're working on site is that obviously they removed all the timber, didn't they? They moved it all and they packed it up and they put it into boxes, and it's so well preserved today, right? And it's in an aircraft hangar somewhere, right? That's exactly completely a load of rubbish. In fact, Arthur Bulleid did the right thing. He removed a few timbers, and the rest of the timbers he left there, right? So much of the timber was left actually at the site, and the soil put back on top of it as the best way to preserve it. And that turned out to be the best way to preserve it, because when they started looking at the site in, going through the 1900s, into the 2000s, for example, that as they were excavating back, they thought, oh my God, it's all still here. Arthur Bulleid did the right thing. There is drainage across the landscape now, and it's causing damage to the archaeology. I'll give you that. But if it had all gone into an aircraft hangar, right, it would have probably had the same fate as the artifacts from Tintagel that were in the Bristol Museum. They would all got up in flames, or the same effect would have happened with the Hull Museum, which was bombed by the Luftwaffe from Norway. All the artifacts would have gone up, all the timber stuff. In fact, there's an interesting point there. In the Hull Museum, they up until it was bombed by the Luftwaffe from Norway, and I think it was 1940. It had some of the earliest wooden canoes in Britain, but they all went up in flames. So it was in a way good. It was in a way good that Arthur Bulleid did not, um, bring up all the timber, because what are you going to do with it? It's like Iron Age wooden house Jenga. There's a lot going on there. But so again, sometime, whether it's 50 years BC, whether it's AD 50, or whether it's AD 140, right? The site was eventually abandoned. Again, was it to do with the water rising, or was it to do with it dropping, and so on? More likely rising, but this site is built on a morass of artificial and natural foundations, timber, brushwood, bracken, rubble, clay, bones, anything that you can do to build up the level of the site. And then between all the buildings, they were at this platform and stuff, and they just built it up. Somebody asked me the question, which I had to answer last night. I said, look, to build this site, to create this site, they used 1 ton of clay. No, they didn't. They used 1,000 tons of clay, right? 1,000 tons of clay at this site, which was transported probably from Glastonbury itself to the site, because it's clay. It's not the alluvial gubbins, right? It's actually clay which would have come from the likes of Glastonbury, because Glastonbury Tor is the place of Carboniferous rock, and where you've got Carboniferous rock and limestone rock, you've actually got lots of clay, right? So this is what we're talking about. So again, thinking about the archaeology and trying to get a sense of the archaeology and working out the artifacts. This is actually this is a rather interesting artifact. This is known as the bronze bowl from the site. And the metal Glastonbury bowl was made from 2 sections. Two sections riveted together and repaired several times over its life. So it's a bowl that was a keepsake. To be honest with you, I'm sure one of my grandparents used to have a bowl like this, but not obviously not that. They just come from India, but it looks very much Oriental, but it's made in Britain back in the Iron Age. The bottom half has been dated as having been constructed in the Iron Age. The upper half was probably added a little bit later, right? From 1 sheet of metal, which may have been previously used for another purpose, and the 2 halves riveted together, and those are big chunky rivets. Now, yeah, this is undoubtedly fascinating. This really is a site of very special things indeed. And when we think about the experience at the site, the village housed people in 5 to 7 groups of roundhouses, each for an extended family, with sheds and barns made of hazel and willow, covered with reeds, and surrounded either permanently or at certain times by a wooden palisade. Now, you could argue having a wooden palisade around the settlement, for example, is for defence, but it is more likely to have been a barrier to protect the site from erosion, if you've got a palisade around something, you can keep adding to it, right? If you don't have a palisade around it, it just washes away, so this is what we're talking about. And so this was there to stabilize the settlement, there to defend the clay falls from erosion. And we think then we start to think that if you've got a population of 200 people How many houses did they need, actually, practically, right? Were all these houses occupied at the same time? No. Right. Okay. Okay. So there's 80 of them. Now, if you spread 200 people around 80 houses, right, you can work out that's 2 people per house, or 2.5 people per house. The point is that it's likely that they may have used about 15 houses at any one time, right? And therefore that means that lots of these buildings have been occupied and used over the various years that this site has actually been in use. And what you might find as well, as we know with the Terra Preta experience, is with the Amazonian people, that you might have one building, right, and then it's abandoned, and like 100 years goes by and they thought, oh, there's a mound over there, we'll chuck a building back on it, right? So it's not it's distinctive that these houses themselves develop over a period of time. Now the other weird thing as well is, obviously when we're thinking about the Iron Age, we're thinking about circular, aren't we? We're thinking about everything's got a circular thing about it. But the initial houses at the site were actually square and rectangular, rather than circular. And so that is very, very interesting. Again, why they changed the way they built. And people have suggested that this site is a lake village, right? Moreover, more recent work suggests the title is a swamp village. That's why I called it a swamp village, because that's maybe more appropriate. As for most of the year, the surrounding land was not open water. It was just like really swampy and boggy and horrible. And maybe the best thing to do is to build this up. Now, the question that brings to mind really, really quickly, right? 1 second, I'm going to leave these stupid cats out a minute. Hang on a minute. All right. Okay. Go on, Marley. Go on. Go and see the big black cat. Sorry, folks. Hopefully I can get back into what I was thinking about. Right. Okay. Right. So again, this is my point. The point I was trying to make was that the population in Britain is maximum in the Iron Age spread over Britain. Maximum, a fantasy 3 million, right? It's closer to 1.5, 2 million, or 2.5 million, something like that over the British Isles. And you're thinking, well, okay, this was the point I made last night. I basically said, well, if you want to get away from people, right, you can get away from people, right? You can hide and you don't need to see a single human being again, right? But if you live like that, you're not going to be able to trade with anybody, right? So that is a really good point. So say, for example, in Wales today, you can live somewhere and never see anyone again, right? It's possible. You can still do it, right? But if you need to have your solar panel repaired, you need civilization. If you're dying, right, you need to have medical assistance. So you in that sense, going back to this, having something like this, you've got trade all the time, right? And this is really important. You can't trade on top of a hill, right? But where you can trade is within a delta of water like this, where people are passing all the time, right? And this is why this site is important to remember that. And when we think about the Bronze Age example of Mus Farm, right? Maybe that was just a trading post. And they're in these localities. One point to be made is that these lake villages, right, are all that survive in the forms of timber settlements, in this form of great preservation, because it's in a boggy, marshy landscape. So all the other villages, all you get is post holes and sort of indications and charcoal in the ground to say that they had places to live. Right. It happened to be that these have actually survived where they are in the examples that we've already mentioned. So they do talk about this site is connected by causeways, to the more dry land, the dry land, right?
Hmm.
But the one thing about these boats is very, very important, that they do find lots of boats associated with these sites. For example, when you think about Flag Fen and you think about Must Farm, right? You got a dozen odd boats, wooden canoes that have been found, right? And in this situation, you've got boat evidence as well. At least two that they've actually found on the site. Now, and the other thing as well, they chose to live this way, right? Nobody says, by the way, you can't live on my land. Go away. And somebody says, oh, there's loads of fields over there. Just go over there. All right, then we'll go over there. It's fine. You actually choose to live here, right? Nobody's forcing you to live here. It's not marginal land. You've got nowhere else to live. I will argue with anyone who says that this is just marginal land. You had nowhere to live, right? It wasn't that you had to live here. They chose to live here. That is fact, right? But the people who chose here chose a locality that they could trade extensively, right? And obviously they would have had a vegetable diet. They would have had a meat diet made up of various mammals and whatever they could catch. And we've mentioned vegetables. We for example, you could easily have bees, right? You could have bees. You could have a beehive on the top of your roof, and you've got all these flowers around. It'd be ideal. And the remains, what we found at the site, we've got the remains of wheat, barley, and pulses, beans that have actually been found, recovered at the site, right? So what's happening is that, oh, and by the way, you can't grow barley here, right? You can't grow wheat here, right? You can't grow beans here unless you grow it on your roof, right? It's certainly not going to be enough to feed everybody. It's too damp to grow barley. So the point is, it's going to be, well, if you had rice paddies, it'd be ideal, but we're not talking about China here, right? So the point is, to get hold of barley and wheat, it's trade, isn't it? It's trade. It's very, very, very much trade, right? And this is this goes to the other document I want to look at, but we're gonna mention this anyway, right? And this sort of describes the site from the eyes of Arthur Bulleid and the other archaeologists who excavated with him, called Gray, that we'll mention in a short while. And they said about this, a Glastonbury Lake village, there it is, became less marked as a layer the nearer the village margin was approached. So in other words, as they're starting to go out from the hub of the site, the middle of the site, and the buildings, right? What they've got is there's various different layers of stuff on the outside of the settlement. And the superficial layers near the palisades consist of heterogeneous mass of vegetable debris. I used to use the word heterogeneous in my when I was in university all the time. People were dead impressed. And in that, it containing bones, pottery, and other evidences of human occupation. But when I used the word Lebensraum, my lecturer went absolute nuts. Don't use that word, Carl, he said. And you'll have to look that one up. So the quantity varying according to the particular area under examination and diminishing in direct proportion to the distance at which the peat was explored from the palisading. So what we're trying to say is the site is, as the site goes further out from the buildings in the middle, there's a mix of stuff. There's lots of really interesting things going on. But it's quite diverse, and we'll mention a little bit about that as we go through as well. Right. Anyway, but we'll just keep to this a minute, because it's very, very useful. Find that very useful. So again, the guess what Arthur Bulleid was actually being trained to be. He was a medical student. He was training to be a doctor of medicine. Whose father was a local mayor and the founder of the Glastonbury Antiquarian Society, and a close friend of the future Prime Minister, Anne, called Lloyd George. I can't make it up.
Oh, yes, I'm oh no, I don't know what to say.
Exactly, it's amazing, isn't it? Lloyd George gets everywhere.
Yeah.
Arthur Bullied had heard about the lake villages in Switzerland and believed similar sites could be found in his native Somerset. And mind my French, mind my language, he bloody found it. Not just one, there was 2 other ones found as well. So the Mere sites. So amazing, absolutely amazing. And actually, Graham Clark said the same thing. He basically said, well, Graham Clark said, right, he was writing in London, right, and he was basically saying, "Oh, right, are we going to find something like this from the Mesolithic period?" And he sat down, and this guy just after the war, he wrote to the museum and said, "Oh, look, I found something that is a bit like this, but it's a lot older, right, up in the north, like, from the Mesolithic period." So if you think and you do dream and you believe, these things can be found and they can get done. So the excavation of the area began, as we've already said, in 1892, and work continued for 15 years, right, and covering the full extent of the settlement, by the way. And as I said, he would 6 months on the site, 6 months publishing the site, and then and this is rather interesting. He then left the site to complete his medical studies and after 1900, right, and returned then in 1904 with a pal that he met called Harold St. George Gray. And they continued the excavations until 1907, so that's 15 years. The curator of the Taunton Museum of the Somerset Archaeological and Natural History Society, Harold St. George Gray, had been trained in archaeological techniques by the archaeologist Augustus Pitt Rivers. No less Augustus Pitt Rivers, the Augustus Pitt Rivers, right? Whose wife was so into archaeology, they had an archaeological team. It was great. So finding this village, finding this site, right? Finding these layers. They found the remains of the village, and it consisted of, as I said, more than 80 mounds, in fact 89 mounds, and some of these mounds would be just over a meter wide, right, and some of them would be 4.5 meters wide. So obviously the 1 meter wide ones were just small little hut type things for chickens and statues of Lloyd George, and the 4.5 meter ones were obviously the places that these people lived, and made up of clay laid over the boggy ground, with hearths in the middle and whatever, right? And the one thing about this, and the interesting thing about our friend, right? Our friend Arthur Bully, he decided that he was to leave stuff to be excavated by future generations, right? And he was right, because it's meant that people have been able to go back now and they've been able to excavate his stuff. So basically, he excavated the area, right? And he says, right, we got that, and he didn't go any deeper or further, right? So it meant that future generations could come along and excavate it. So that's another reason why he left it all there, Lots of the timber there, the flooring and stuff intertwined there. It's great stuff. And obviously you've got that other image where you've got, where was it? I just had it a minute ago. Where you've got hearths in the middle and these different layers. So again, somebody else asked me last night, what type of timber have we got here? And we're talking about birch, we're talking about alder, we're talking about oak, willow. So what have alder and willow got in common? They like a bit of water, where oak doesn't. And one of the things that occurred to me last night, right, was that it was I don't know, I didn't make much of it. I basically said to be able to build this settlement, to be able to build this over and over again, a building collapses and you rebuild it after 20 years or 15 years, right? And you keep building here, it must mean there's a lot of timber about, right? And you're able to get hold of that timber. And what does that mean if you're able to get hold of that timber? The people that in the area where that timber is don't mind you having it, right? And that is another point. If these people were warring all the time, they would have built one house there and it would have been burnt down and it buggered off, right? So again, you're thinking of some very interesting nuances, right? Each of the finds from large timber to small fragments of pottery were drawn and described, with some also being photographed by Arthur Bullied and our friend Gray. In 1909, listen to this, right? In 1909, the site was visited by no less than George V, while he was the Prince of Wales, along with his wife Ethel. They were given. No, I just made that up. She was probably called Ethel. She probably was. Oh no, she was. Wasn't she called Alexandria?
Something like that. Yeah.
She was. You know, I've actually got to Anne look that up a minute to see if the wife of George V was called Alexandria, right? And if so, was her middle name Ethel? You'll probably find out that we're all right. So and basically they were actually given a silver replica of the Glastonbury bowl, right? Because they were so in awe of this bowl being found on the site. So again, thinking about this and moving and understanding this site, right? And so reburying what they used to fear was that the site was going to dry out too quickly, and if the site dried out too quickly, it would destroy the archaeology, and there'd be nothing left. Well, now they've gone back, and just meters under the surface, and just a few meters under the surface, is a scheduled ancient monument anyway. They've actually found the timber really, really well preserved still, right? And the best way of preserving it was to actually bury it, right? There is evidence of some of it drying out, and it's at risk, right? But it is a scheduled ancient monument. It does have certain protections, so you just can't just go in there digging up stuff. So Bullied and Gray later went on to excavate a similar site, two sites at the Mere Lake Village, approximately 1.2 miles southwest of the Glastonbury site. Right, so that's the the ones that we mentioned last week, the Mere sites, the two of them. So again, getting to grips with this site, small scale excavations have been carried out by other archaeologists over the years, and various films have actually been made. And they've done different loads of 3D modeling, and they've done replicas of canoe, and so this is naturally a wonderfully intriguing site. And when you do go and see, there's also not only a display at the museum in Glastonbury, the Tribunal, it's also artifacts being displayed at the Museum of Somerset in Taunton, and this is rather interesting. Well, this is all interesting. Now, sad though, but then again, it's life. When Arthur Bullied was excavating at the site, they found the burial of 10 newborn babies, but there was no evidence of any adults being buried at the site, right? So if you take that and you think about Neolithic mentality, right? So obviously the Neolithic period is 2,000 plus years before. Well, actually, no, 3,000 years before. When we look at causewayed enclosure sites, Neolithic people did not put their babies on platforms to be gnawed at by wolves and stuff. They couldn't cope with it. Well, I couldn't cope with it, right? So what they basically did, they buried their babies, right? And like Iron Age people buried their babies within the building, underneath the buildings, within the village, so they could. But it's not something that we just see it's not something that we just see of babies being buried in the Neolithic period. It's also not just in the Iron Age. It's also something in the Roman period as well. When the archaeologists were excavating at Dorchester, and they were looking at the townhouse in Dorchester, they actually found the remains of several babies' burials just alongside the wall of the Roman townhouse there, right? So, all societies, a child dies, a baby dies very young. They're not treated the same as adults, right? They're kept within kept within the family in a way. And we've got no remains of adults at the site either, which you know, if anyone's ever done any deep reading about the Iron Age, you'll come across this statement that there was times in the Iron Age where we don't know where the bodies went, right? The men without hats, where have all the boys gone? You know, we don't know where people went, right? And you know, maybe they were just putting their bodies in the water or something. We don't know. But the interesting thing as well is, you know, the Iron Age is a really, really interesting period for lots of stark differences, like, you know, cremations and bodies not being around and inhumation burials and so on. And looking over the site and excavating the site, getting a good idea of the site and its cornucopia of archaeology. They've found and excavated. The artifacts recovered include fragments of pottery, charcoal, bone, and a whetstone. Obviously, we need that for sharpening, you know, the blades. And tying in with last week, they also, and the week before, they found spinning wools, yes, and weaving combs, yes, suggesting textile production. Now, this may have actually just been for their own use, but when you start to look at this, you start to think, well, this site has got a lot more to it than just a collection of houses which were there for a few hundred years, right? In the Iron Age, right? It's got a lot more to it. It really, really has. You know, that there's something else, and the something else is going to come more evident now, right? They've got evidence of bronze casting and iron smelting. Hang on, think about that. It's a site that the buildings are made of timber. You're walking on timber, right? But you've got the technology, right, to cast bronze, and you've got the technology to smelt iron. Now, smelting iron, as Anne knows and as I know, needs a temperature of well in excess of 1,450 odd degrees C, which is a little bit hot, right? That's a hell of a lot of heat. But within this settlement, within the clay bases and the timber bases of these buildings, right, they still smelted iron and cast bronze, right? So you're thinking of this and you're examining it and you're understanding it, and fine jewelry made from bronze bone have also been found, showing a high degree of craftsmanship. Files and hammerheads were examined by metallography, which showed that carbon compositions were found to be generally low. In 1905, an early British tin coin was found, and that is an amazing thing. So what we're going to do, I'm going to get me back on screen a minute, right? Because we're going to have a break in a minute, and I've got to do something about my technology as well. Hang on. There we go. Okay. Right. Good. One of the fascinating things about the site, right, is that they actually found click on that. They actually found a British tin coin, right? And then when we've explained about coinage, we've explained that these people in this area didn't produce coins, right? But in 1905, they found a British tin coin, which was extremely rare. And obviously that's made from tin from Cornwall, because obviously this is closer to Cornwall than, say, you know, most other places, right? So again, this sort of trumps or changes the narrative. Obviously, where you're mining stuff, you're not producing coins and so on. Other people are doing it, right? But finding a tin coin at the site, very, very interesting. Dating to the years immediately after the birth of Christ. And so what we're going to do now, we're going to take a break. We've got more to do after the break, and we'll go from there. And we'll mention the wooden wheels and the woven baskets after the break as well. Right. Okay, so we're gonna have we're gonna have a 15-minute break, right? But before we have our 15-minute break, right, we're going to ask if anyone's got any questions. And Anne, what would you like to say, lovely?
George V was married to Mary of Teck.
Did she have a middle?
He was the
did she have
king. It was when he was the king on the throne when Lloyd George was in office and Bully was working. But you asked me for someone else, didn't you?
Oh no, I asked if her
Was
middle
she
name was
Ethel?
Ethel.
I couldn't see any other words.
All right, then fair enough.
Oh.
You know, they probably had a daughter called Ethel, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, but
So
that's interesting.
no, that's very useful. Anyway, thanks for that. And Goff is going to tell his best mate when he goes drinking with him on the weekend, Alan, and he's going to give him that fact. Right.
And the one
Okay then.
before him, George IV, had
He
that.
was married to an Ethel.
He might have married to an. I think she was Alexandra, maybe. I don't know, but she he had that disease, didn't he, of the blood disorder, and
Did he?
mad. He went
Oh, right.
mad. But that was like sort of the beginning of the 18th century.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway,
fair enough.
I mean, it's interesting to know what's happening when Mr. Bully was in Glastonbury.
Yes. Well, of course it is. They didn't have as good shops in Glastonbury as they do now, you know. But yeah. Anyway, okay. Right. Anything from you, Pat?
No,
She's miming.
she's miming.
She's having a good old mime.
The sound is off, Pat. Well, we just accept.
I don't know what to say. She's
There,
lip reading.
I'm back. Sorry.
I hope you've got something to say after all that.
Sorry. I was sad about the babies, but where were the adults buried? Where were they? Did they have cemeteries? Did they burn them? Did they,
Oh, this is the point. We don't actually know where they buried them, particularly for this site. And it's one of those weird enigmas in the Iron Age. At times we've got a lack of where they're burying their dead.
Mm. Well, they might have moved around a lot. I mean, I think your idea of temporary villages, is because they had none of their own land and they just took the worst land to use to live on.
Or to trade, yeah.
What's that?
Right. Anything from you, Richard?
No, interesting.
Thank you. And also,
Subject.
and thank you for that. And also, finally, Goff, anything you'd like to say?
Did they find any other pots, or was the only pot they found?
That they found lots of ceramic pots, but when it comes down to that pot, they only found one copper pot like that.
Okay.
Just the one, right? So this is why it was so intriguing for the king to have a silver one. So
one metal pot.
One metal pot, yeah. It is a bit odd.
Village, maybe.
Well, yeah, exactly. It may have been the symbolism of the village. It may have been the thing.
Yeah. Good. No questions. No, not yet.
Bit weird, really.
It is a bit weird, a bit like you, Anne, but it's a bit weird. Right.
I don't know.
Anne can take it. Anne can take it. Right. Okay, then. It's 7:58 now. We're doing okay for time, so we'll take a little break and we'll be back by 8:13. So go for it. Okay.
Oh, sounds like not much time.
Well, It's 15 minutes for God's sake.
Oh, all right. All right.
Bloody hell. All by myself. Don't wanna be all by myself anymore. When I was young, I never needed anyone like you. La 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 la. La 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 la. When I was young. When I was young, this was bloody nothing for a house in the street. Bloody hell. Bloody hell, Rusky pub. All by myself. Don't wanna be all by myself anymore. When I was young, I never needed anyone like you. La 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 la. By myself. What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do you do with a drunken sailor early in the morning? Oh, right. Okay, I've got to look on the device now. Oh, yeah, I've got to get the charger. If you want to say, if you want to say, if you want to say in the morning. Shit. Oh, right, I've got to get back on. I might have to do this. Oh, okay.
I was just going to
Well, okay. What I'm thinking of doing, if I go to that document, right? If I go to that document, if I go to, I think I can do that from there. So if I right, okay, so I've got that there. La, 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 la. Oh my fucking god. Not now. Return of power in the Walking Dead. Right. I don't do that. I do that. I don't do that. Just I don't know.
I don't know either.
Oh, do you know that in the one-legged donkey sanctuary in Spain, they've actually had another 10 donkeys.
I know.
Yep. They work down a coal mine.
In Glastonbury.
No, bloody hell! How are you supposed to get one-legged donkeys from bloody Glastonbury to Spain? For God's sake, think sense, woman.
Wasn't there any swampy villages around Cadbury Hill?
Probably, yeah, probably.
Maybe they worship the hill.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe. It definitely may be by Oasis. Are you a fan of Oasis, Anne? Do you know Oasis?
Yeah,
Oh, I thought you might be a fan of Oasis.
I used to be.
All right, okay, fair enough.
I don't like them now.
Why not?
Well, they're old.
So you don't like Neil Gallagher then?
No, I mean when they were young, you could forgive them. But now,
No, right.
my son used to like them, so we used to all sing there.
Did they?
Hmm. Do you like them?
Some of their stuff's all right, isn't it?
Well, it reminds me of the Beatles, really. You know, that era of just pop songs. Pretty good, really.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I thought they were good songs,
Yeah, they are.
and they still are. Yeah, great songs,
We all live in a yellow submarine. Mind you, I think they were all high on crack, those Beatles.
Oh, I don't know about the Beatles, but Oasis were.
All right.
I read their biography.
Well, they used to be on crack cocaine.
No, no, no.
Didn't we used to take? Didn't we used to bring take that in our classes in Bridgend?
No. No.
Del used to think so.
Oh, well, I don't know about Del, but
Del's unique.
have you seen Del? You haven't met him, have you?
What do you mean? Of course I met Del loads of times.
Well, he doesn't come out to play. He doesn't come out to have a coffee or anything, but he's got loads of things to do, I know.
Yeah, that's
He's
true.
got a life.
Well, Gog's got a life as well.
Yeah. Well, you've all got lives, you know. Except me. No, 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 no.
Goff is the original gigolo.
Well, I have to say that, you know, our archaeology group in Bridgend, and I'm sure you've probably felt the same in Barry and Lantwit, it spoilt me really because I don't want to go in any other group now.
True.
You know, like I went to this group in Bridgend and there was like 50 people there, and the noise was terrible. It was terrible. And I thought, I can't even wear my hearing aid, it's so noisy. So I took my hearing aid out. And I probably won't, I don't know if I'll go back. It's like a AGM or something. But when I said the word archaeology, nobody like was interested, you know. I thought I could start an archaeology group.
Oh, right. Was that the U3A?
No, it was Biz.
Oh, right.
Visually impaired group.
Does the U3A still go? Is the U3A still going in Bridgend or?
I think we haven't got one in Bridgend, but there's one in Pencoed. Oh no, it's not No, it is Pencoed, yeah, but I think the U3A is in Langina. But it's you know, people go. Pat knows all about it because she's been to both, but WI and U3A.
Oh,
There
right.
used to be one in Bridgend, but I don't think there is. I think it's post-call.
Oh, right. U3A.
This biz group would be, you know. Oh, you're not doing that anyway, are you? You're not doing visited. I did think, you know, the museum, the Barry Museum group.
Yeah.
We could, you know, if this works at you know, for St. Whatnot's Day, and we do a little play.
Yeah.
We could perhaps create a presentation that could go around the care homes.
Hmm.
You know, like I don't know, medieval. Oh, do you think they'd be too scared?
No. No.
Well, I still am, you know, I just thinking of opportunities.
Why would they be too scared? Don't be so silly.
No, I mean, you know, like people in the care homes in the
No.
no, so long as it's just a care home, it'll be all right.
So as soon as Pat's got back, we'll get started again.
Oh, Pat.
She's probably gone to get dinner or something.
Oh. So everything all right with everybody?
Yeah,
Life goes on, does it?
Goff's got earache.
Oh, I had that. I had earache the weekend.
Did you?
Yeah.
Does your husband get earache, Anne?
No, he just walks out the room. I go,
Lucky, isn't he?
goes, I actually, do you know what? I actually do think I got ADHD, you know,
Yeah.
because I do find it very difficult to keep quiet. And
Yeah.
and I'm quite noisy.
Yeah.
You know, that's one aspect of ADHD.
That's true.
Oh,
Right. Okay. Right. Where are we? Right. Okay.
oh.
The one slight change now is that my other device is gone out of action, so we're back to the other one.
Oh,
So we're gonna have to just change things around a little bit. So we're gonna get started now anyway. We can't. We're not gonna wait all night.
No, I'll catch up.
She'll catch up.
Yeah. She might be on the phone.
All right. She talks a lot as well.
She might be on the landline.
That's true. That's true. Right. Okay. Okay. There we go. Right. All right then. Now, I think what I might do is do a little Google stuff. Right. There we go. Right. There we go. Share. Screen. Broadcasting. Right. We're ready.
Oh, it's a double whammy of EastEnders tonight. I'm gonna miss it.
Right. What's showing on your screen?
Journal of Wetland Archaeology.
That's what I want to see. That's what I want to see. And what we need to do is we're going to type in. I'm gonna carry on with my stuff, and I'm gonna type in. Select tabs. There we go. What's going on? Oh, flippin' edit. Oh, hang on a minute. Okay. Things have gone wrong a minute. Hang on a minute. Right, go. Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Hang on, my cotton socks. I made a little bit of a mistake yesterday. All right, there. So I'm just gonna read. So what you're seeing a little are you seeing the remains again?
Yeah.
So the site yielded a number of wooden objects. I know Goff mentioned before the break about the fact that, is it just one copper bowl? But they found lots of other wooden objects, wooden bowls, lots of items, including. This is really interesting. This ties us in a little bit with Must Farm, with the PT preservation and the very damp preservation that we've got on the site, right? They actually found 5 wheel spokes and an unfinished nave to be used as the hub of a wheel. Now that's really interesting, and you've got to ask yourself a question: why would a site like this, like Must Farm, like Flag Fen, have wheels at them when these are sites that are inevitably built over water or directly within water courses? It's just this wheel fascination. So they've got evidence of wheeled transport or evidence of wheeled transport being stored at this site, like some of the other sites that we've mentioned. And thinking as well about when we've got, for example, we've got eel traps and so on with lots of these other sites. They've got woven baskets for storage that they found at the site. And interesting enough, the other week we mentioned about making. We've got our various looms, and we've got a war plume, and we've got our loom weights and so on. They actually found evidence of a wooden frame, right, for stretching animal skins. Now that's something that is, not the usual type of evidence. We talk about people in the past wearing animal skins. Obviously, at this point, they were wearing all sorts of different garments, right? But animal skins, a wooden frame used for stretching animal skins. I think that's rather interesting. Even down to little details being found on sites, such as a die within a shaker, right? And the die in the shaker actually made of antler horn. And you're thinking, okay, we've got a bit of we've got games going on at these sites and so on. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to an article that I want to pick out little things from. And if I can, obviously I've got a bit of a problem with the technology at this minute. So hang on, that there. I go to there. Hopefully I can get to there. Oh, yes, that's what I wanted. Right, so this is quite a complicated article. And what I'm going to do is pick little bits out from it, right? And what we've got there, if we do that, and oh, hang on, we've got there. That should be showing on the screen. Good. Partly on the screen, anyway. So this is giving you an idea of, again, some of the areas of the excavation at the site. So I'll give you this little piece that I found on the internet, which gives us a little bit more of an up to date on Glastonbury, right? So when we talk about Arthur Bullied, we talk about Gray. They were good at making site plans, and they were good at doing sections and various other things that are required on such an archaeological site, such as this beauty here. They made these sections of all the different mounds, right? Now, what we've got to do, we've got to quickly mention Arthur Bullied is restricted by the techniques, restricted by the science available back in the 1900s. But nevertheless, he was able to give a near precise date when people occupied the site. In fact, his date of 100 years BC was actually spot on, right? But he could have actually said it was older, but he didn't. But he said it was 100 years BC. That's okay. That's okay for us. And that was having no radiocarbon dating methods, none of the sort of no methods like dendrochronology at his disposal. He was able to give a good overall picture, right? But one thing he was unable to do was to take environmental samples of the minutiae. Obviously, they would have had microscopes back then, but he was brilliant at giving an idea for the timbers and what timbers he had. But modern science, this is a modern day science now, has gone back on the site and re-examined areas of the site that were not within his grasp back in the day. So now we can actually get an idea of the soil morphology, the soil makeup, and what's going on. We're able to work out plant microfossils. We're able to work out pollen. We're able to work out various geochemicals that are in the soil that was not available to his science. And again, reiterating this, trying to get to this, and let's get to it. It's that adage that archaeologists should leave something for future generations to excavate, because in future generations, their technology will be far more superior to what we've got today. Right? Who would have thought about strontium analysis 30 years ago? It wasn't available, but now we've got it. Who was potassium argon dating, for example, things that are really, really old. The improvements that have been made in radiocarbon dating, and obviously the tables that we've got involving dendrochronology. So what we've got from basic evidence at the site was that we know that they were storing grain from the macrofossils that they've been finding. They're actually finding out as well from various remains of dung, right? What animals were actually on site. So again, looking and understanding the site through the eyes of Arthur Bulleid and Harold St. George Gray is enhanced by what we're able to do today. And again, to get core samples of the site. And if we go back to an image that we've actually seen quite a bit of today, right, which is this one here, right? Again, trying to put this on the screen. Okay, I'm using my technology is slightly different now, so we've got this, except it's a little bit more clearer. That's a lot more clearer than it was before. Now, what we're now able to work out, we're able to record on top of what Arthur Bulleid recorded. For example, Arthur Bulleid and his friend Gray, they recorded the village had been built on an area of wet woodland, shown by the presence of numerous tree stumps and leafy peat. And it was off this earlier woodland that once existed that was able to pronounce the site for them to build off in the first place. So in other words, the old rotten trees were actually become the foundations for the settlement, right? Which is something very, very different. And what they've actually found is the workings of the archaeology, the workings of the past, because they found loads of wood chips dotted around the site. Now the various one interesting thing that they that we're now starting to look at now, and what they were able to see, was that earlier on when we read this out, didn't we, about the site? There's less and less artifacts going out from the site naturally, right? The archaeology diminishes as we go further out of the site, right? Because the core of the site is where all the archaeology and stuff's going on. However, what they did find also, this is by looking at their analysis back in the day and today, they've actually worked out that people were flinging their pottery up to 18 meters from the site, right? They were also finding slingshots and various things buried in the mud surrounding this site, right? And this is rather interesting because they were discarding their refuge away from the site rather than just only dumping it over the side of the Palisades. And we've also started to realize that the people at the site were very aware of the environmental impact of them living here, because on certain sides of the site, they found evidence of the freshwater mussels living and thriving, and they wouldn't have been living and thriving if they had been contaminated with constant debris from the human settlement. So these people were aware. These people in the Iron Age were aware of their environmental impact. So it's better to chuck stuff further away, right, rather than around, because we got a delicate environment that we need to rely upon these things like mussels and so on. Now, what they also found as well, through examining the site, through examining what was there, right? They worked out the tree stumps were of alder, which likes damp conditions, willow damp conditions, birch, which seems to like dryish conditions actually, And then eventually that was in the Bronze Age, and eventually that was sort of swept away by the flooding, right? And then in the Iron Age, people lived within this swampy community, right, which was now being taken over by reeds and sedges and so on. Now, this all highlights our wish to keep on re-excavating and re-analyzing these sites, and to get a good idea of the settlement on how the various changes were actually occurring over time. One thing that I've completely missed and I've not said, right, is that even though the people, hang on, get rid of that. Even though the people living here, right, were probably the same people over time. And again, this is one cross section of one of the mounds amongst loads of the cross sections of the mounds. They obviously, people are doing different things at this site over time. Remember, it's hundreds of years. And what you've got there is that each of those layers, the black things there, which are actually clay. If we go to oh, this is better, isn't it? That's clearer. That's much clearer. Hang on. Go. Oh, hang on. We're going to get this. I think it's not. You're going to let me do that? No, we'll have to go with what we've got there. It's the technology today, but you can probably see it much bigger on your screen than I can. But what we've got there, we've got these clay banks, these clay layers. Now, what they're saying with modern dating evidence is that those layers were probably those layers were set down, those clay layers, those black layers. There's 9 there. Maybe one of those clay layers represented 5 years of occupation, another 15 years, another 20 years, 10 years. So what's happening? You can clearly see that there's that it's inverted at the bottom, right? So what's happening is that the settlement, the buildings, are actually weighing into the peats and the material down below. So that sinks and it gets damp. So you've got to put more clay on, right? That sinks, gets damp, more clay, right? With usually these are superimposed on top of each other, and obviously you've got the wonderful hearths in the middle as well. And notice that there we go. Arthur Bully has left when he's found out that we've got, for example, 4 layers of clay and 4 layers of hearths in the middle of the settlement. He's basically stopped excavating the hearths, right? Maybe he did that because he thought in future generations people are going to be able to do something with the hearths in the middle. So this is the point. What we can do now, we can look at this building 9, and we can take radiocarbon dates from the hearths to understand when this was actually being occupied and when everything's going on. I think this is absolutely amazing and fascinating. Now, this article, if anyone wants to look and really get into detail, right? The name is actually on the screen now, and you can type it in after Glastonbury Lake Village Revisited, a multi-proxy paleo-environmental investigation. So what we're going to do now there's something equally fascinating before we go on to something else this evening, right? There's a couple of slides I want to show you from this, and this is about the radiocarbon dating, right? So if we go down there, right, and we go down there, keep going in this article. Where is it? Right there. Bingo. Now, one area of the site, this challenges everything, right? On why it challenges everything, right? That actually works. It really does work, right? So what's happened? If I can, so what you can clearly see, the dating here, that's 800, 600, 400, 200 years BC, right? So up until Arthur Bully's excavations, right, without his radiocarbon dating, he said that the site was about 100 years BC, right? It was 100 years BC. But what Arthur Bully didn't know was that there was evidence of buildings on the site, right, that go all the way back to 500 years BC, right? And then, this is just a little bit of analysis of one part of the site, right? And then you've got lots of things. If you go to the middle of the screen, right, between 400 and 200, right, you've got 3 signatures there of radiocarbon dating, right, which say that a lot's going on at the site, and then occupation then continues up until the middle part of about 50 years BC, right? And then in this part of the site is abandoned, but we do know that the site does continue in use for quite some time, because what we've got also is the macrofossils, and I can only identify some of these because what they've got from the pollen evidence at the site, they've got Pinus sylvestris, which is pine. They've got Quercus, which is obviously oak. Yeah, you've got your Salix, which is obviously willow. And if on a good day, I'd remember what Sorbus was, and Petula. But the Quercus and Salix is actually available. There's evidence of these on site. There's no evidence of the Sorbus. There's no evidence of Petula. But there is little traces of Petula and Sorbus, right? Only little traces. But there's heavy traces of Quercus, Salix, right? The Quercus and the Salix. Basically, you've got, for example, your oak pollen, right? So we've got evidence of this on site. Now, the reason why this is all really fascinating, all this pollen, all this evidence, the reason why this is all fascinating, right? It tells us of changes in the environment at the site, right? Scientifically, it tells us of changes at the site. And one interesting thing is, well, at the bottom there, it's got charcoal, but it's also got evidence of there's a little cross there, right? Other than that, there's little to no evidence of sphagnum moss at the site, which is very interesting, because this was this was a peat boggy landscape. But sphagnum moss is not going to exist in areas where there's human occupation. So that's got rid of that. And I think something, because of now modern technology, we're able to get this list of pollen and non-pollen and charcoal, and we're able to get this table together. And I think this is absolutely fascinating. So what we're going to do now, the next bit, because I really want to finish at 9 o'clock, so we've got to try and put in the questions then as well. So what we've got now, I want us to look at current archaeology, and there's another piece from current archaeology, right? So we're going to get that on here now, and if we go there, and we've got the current archaeology there, hopefully the current archaeology piece is again really fascinating, right? A new chronology for Glastonbury. And what does the new and that, look at that, look how clear that is. That's really, really good. And again, this had been seen by Arthur Bullied on his excavations back in the early 1900s. And then we've seen this image, but this is absolutely fascinating. And this actually brings us up to date on some of the dating evidence at Glastonbury. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and because I've had to change over I've got 3 devices here, and
it's quite black, isn't it? Is it quite peaty?
Yeah, it's very. Yeah, the other point I was trying to make earlier on about the sphagnum moss, that there's not really much evidence of sphagnum moss at the site, right?
Yeah.
In regards to pollen and so on. It's very sphagnum moss is usually in sort of forming in the non-aerobic conditions where there's no oxygen and stuff, and it just sinks down and sort of builds up the peat and stuff, right? So, but what's going on here is something very different, and when it is very different. There's different environmental changes going on at the site over a long period of time, and this is what those sort of samples are all about.
Yeah.
So what they've got in current archaeology, obviously, this was December 2020, so for sake of argument 2021. We got 4 years ago. But what they've done is they've allowed scientists to sort of really understand the site a little bit better, right? And to sort of hone in on the dating evidence. So this is what current archaeology basically said. It was thought that the site was in use from 100 years BC to AD 50, according to Arthur Bullied, Harold St. George Gray, which again, I want to reiterate that they did not have the they did not have the scientific dating evidence to do that. And I got to be honest with you, nailing it around 100 years BC is actually quite good. And obviously the site did end eventually, right? So what they've got, but this date has been revised 6 more times over the intervening years, including the 1990s, when a series of radiocarbon samples gave a date range of between 792 BC to AD 145. But this was thought to be inconsistent with the artifactual evidence, which suggested a more likely time span, which we started with tonight, of 250 to 50 years BC. And we actually saw a table earlier on that actually indicated, for example, the site was occupied in sort of 50 odd years, 500 years BC. So overall, a settlement, and now the radiocarbon dated. What they've done is they basically said, right, okay, there are anomalies on site, right? There are anomalies on site. There may have been a building in one bit, but the rest of it, there may not have been anything at all, right? So the overall, when the site was really into its main phase, right? This is what current archaeology have told us, right? The settlement appears to have grown somewhat rapidly, they say, roughly around 185 years BC, right? So there was stuff going on before that, right? But when the site was really kicking off is about 185 BC, right? And it went on to roughly around 20 years BC, right? And then there was another few buildings survived on the site after that, obviously a few before, right? But the main part, when they called themselves a village, right? The specific dating, not the individual buildings, but when they call themselves a settlement, right? So the settlement in many ways appears to have grown quite quickly, and somewhere for probably about 80 odd years, the site was really, probably a population of about 200 people. After this period, there was a slow decline before building finally stopped around 160 years after it had begun. And it's likely that obviously some people want to stay on the site, but as a settlement, it was not a settlement anymore. And it's saying that in my notes, current archaeology says such a short lifespan is not unexpected. But I got to be honest with you, Anne, right? Must Farm was occupied for 1 year, right? So this is quite long, really, isn't it? 160 years. And 160 years is actually quite some generations, really. And the other thing as well is what we've seen with the Arthur Bullied stuff and the Gray stuff was that it's like, well, we've got all these different layers, we've got all these constant layers being built up on the site, and then those constant layers being built up on the site may a generation may have actually rebuilt the house several times, so it's not endless generations rebuilding. It's like, oh right, in my lifetime I rebuilt that house several times. So again, marsh-based sites like that are really unpredictable. They really, really are. And the combination of waterlogged conditions and unsubstantial wooden structures meant that most round houses built on the site probably did not last more than 10 years before having to be rebuilt. It's more or less the same as building. It's more or less the same as building. That adage. You build your house on sand. So really what they've done with the site, we're able to get a more of a timeline and understand it. In many ways, if we want to just give a fine interesting conclusion with this site, right? And if I may go on to Google, and we'll do a conclusion based on what we've got on Google, right? So if we've got right, if we type in Glastonbury Lake Village, we can get some more images now. It's just I did have a few more on the other device, but it's just sometimes things don't always work out. Glastonbury Lake Village. Okay, Lake Village. And hang on. Get some more Google images. And I can just do a tiny little bit from English Heritage then. Okay, images. Right, okay. So when we're thinking, I like this one which we showed the other week. Right. It's not yeah, it's this is rather interesting because it's probably more like what the settlement looked like, you know. And when you look at that map earlier on, and it's like, you know, there's like 89 mounds where Arthur Bullitt found, you know, 90 odd mounds. Most of these are not being lived in because they're decayed. They're just hillocks. So you've got like 10, 15 buildings on site at any one time, right? And some of them for animals, you know.
Mm.
So this is more akin to what the site is about, right? And what historic England says. I'm just getting that up here as well. You know, there it's a protected site. And what English Heritage have actually said, they said it's you know, it's the best preserved Iron Age settlement, right? So we're pretty clear on that. And it's talking about, there's some other little bits and pieces here, which I'm sure I'm going to read this out a minute. I'll just change the image a minute. And maybe that's ringing a little bit more truer, right? That's a little bit more dramatic. I'm sure you'd all agree. They found evidence of ladders. They found a ladder on site. They found tool handles. They found evidence of boxes on site, bowls on site, evidence of complex joinery on site, and this is a rather interesting thing that they got here. Heritage England have written this. They've said previous hydrological monitoring, that is to say checking the level and movement of water, had suggested a potential threat to the preservation of the site due to desiccation. But to gauge the extent of that threat, it was necessary to know the exact height of the surviving in situ wood remains in relation to the water table. So this is what they're doing. And what they're finding is that they're really expanding the knowledge about the site all the time. So we're learning more, and what they're finding after Arthur Bullitt, and they're re-looking at the site. The first surprise was the quantity of material left in the backfill of the original excavations. So in other words, Arthur, and there's some other facts and figures here. I'm glad I come to this because it wasn't in any of the other stuff, right? Arthur Bullitt left a lot of stuff on site. He excavated it, he photographed, and he said, "I'm going to leave it there," right? Which is my type of archaeologist. I got to be honest with you. And I think he may have done the same if he found adult human remains, but we didn't. So here's a little bit more of a list from English Heritage. It says, although it was removed rapidly by spade in the recent fieldwork, the large number of artifacts recovered, if extrapolated across the site, suggests that this previously excavated material could contain nearly 7,000 sherds of pottery, 3,500 fragments of daub, and 16,000 pieces of animal bone. Right, so this is giving you an idea. Right now, this is another interesting piece, and it's to do with that building there. It's to do with the buildings, right? What they've said about the buildings themselves, right, is that they found out that the buildings themselves, as they decay and they form and they go into the peat, they're finding there's lots of evidence of animal dung, charred elements of animal dung. There's dense layers of wood chips across the site, and they've seen that obviously there's a great level of preservation at the site. And finally going with this, they're saying about the site itself. There's lots of fragments. So many fragments of daub, so many fragments of wood, so many they found out that they've got evidence of spelt wheat being found at the site, barley and oats, mixed in with the everyday rubbish and detritus of such an amazing site. Now, this is a very interesting little thing, and it talks about an issue that we didn't talk about last night. So let's just change the image again. It didn't look like this, okay? It never looked like this, but this is, I think this is taken from, when I said, yeah, this is the problem with reconstructed history. When Arthur Bullitt said, oh, there's like 89 buildings there, right? So somebody had to desperately put all the buildings in there, right? But it never looked like that. There's about 15 at any one time. And this interesting thing, again, from Historic England, I keep calling them English Heritage because they've changed to Historic England. It says, not a house for life. In one trench, the original excavations had removed all trace of the roundhouse that was there. In another, the first wooden foundations, as well as the posts that formed the walls, had been left intact. So again, Arthur Bullitt was not taking everything away. Big chunks of stuff were left there. The posts were surprisingly small, formed from young poplar. Now we're getting poplar as well, a poplar tree. And willow, roundwood of maximum 54 millimeters in diameter. So if you want to look at that, that's 5 centimeters in diameter. These bits of wood were actually quite small, right? And were spaced 20 to 25 centimeters apart, with traces of wattle woven between them. So what they're doing, they're putting these uprights in the clay and the mud, right? And they're waving between them, right? Then you've got the main roof timbers. So, and they're sort of they are actually sort of agreeing with the length of time that the site was in use. And do you know what, right? Do you know what? The images that I'm looking at here are absolutely fascinating, and you're not seeing them. So I've got to get them online. I've got to get these online because there's an image here which is absolutely fascinating. Hopefully, if we can type that in there, search. Right, go to there. Hopefully, I can get marry up the same piece I'm looking here as well. Heritage England. I'm looking for Heritage England. I think this is it here. That looks very good. That really nice, interesting reconstruction there. Again, that gives you a good picture of the site. And if I can, again, it's got it's showing the site there, not too far away from Glastonbury. It's a triangular site. We're aware of that, and all these lines and stuff are the drainage reens today. Drainage everywhere, right? And it isn't that interesting that we've got this is one of the buildings, and you've got a hearth in the middle, and you've got all these timbers, and underneath that you've got more timbers, right? And underneath that you've got clay, right? And the outside you've got these we've just described these posts, these upright posts, and these are like 5 centimeters in diameter. They're not really, wall posts. They're not the main supporting timbers. But what you do, you'd weave in amongst them. So this is why they're quite low on the ground. And again, look at that there. This is again thinking about um, how these different layers are built up, and initially you've got the original layers on the bottom, and then you've got clay on top, and you've got clay on top, and you've got to keep building, and you can clearly see it sinking. It's sinking into the brushwood and the peat below. You can clearly see that there. And again, loving these illustrations. This is actually clear. This is the one I've been showing you today, but this is clearer than this is really clear. You know, you've got all this mixture of timber, okay, from the buildings, and you've got this palisade around the outside there, which I think is laying flat in this instance. And again, this map that we've seen most of the time today, and we've seen this, but there are some other. They're saying a small wall stake. You can see that is roundhouse showing cracking caused by desiccation. So you can see that these timbers are not very thick. And on the left-hand side, that's where it's been cut. Been harvested, that's where it's been cut on the left-hand side. There, it's been cut off with an axe on the left, right? And I'm look at that there. I want to show you this one out of anything that I want to show you tonight. And this was excavated in 1907, but this is a modern photograph. And look how well preserved it is. So it was good that Arthur Bully did what he did for many, many reasons, right? And there's a statement here. This today's been a lot about loads of different things in archaeology, a lot to take in. The future climate change predictions for southwest England include more occasional extremes of hotter, drier summers, as we have already experienced in 2022. This means that the survival of this unique site, our clearest window onto Iron Age life, will be increasingly at risk over the coming decades. But then again, from my point of view, from an archaeological point of view, maybe that's not going to be the case, because it is getting very much damper in other parts of the country as well, as well as drier in some parts of Britain. And this again, we're going to finish now. A reconstruction image of the Lake Village, thanks to the Southwest Heritage Trust. And I think this is the best image showing you the site on how it may have looked. And one of the things that I mentioned last night, I didn't see this last night, right? But look what's in the background. There's all those trees, right? Now, this is a good thing to finish on because I didn't have this image last night, right? There was that argument between those believing it's like a defensive site and those believing it's like a trading site. The people with me, trading people, they deliberately lived here, right? If they wanted to have a defensive site, live on the top of Glastonbury bloody tall, bugger off and live up there, right? Go somewhere. But who are you defending yourself against? Wolves, foxes? You know, if you want to hide from people, you can go somewhere, right? And one thing I said last night, right, and not that I like to be right all the bloody time, but usually when you've done this for such a long time, you get really intuitive, right? What I described last night was this: you've got this village on this marshy, flooded landscape, right, surrounded by reeds and some bad conditions, some good conditions, and so on. Right? Remember, all that was once sort of water, right? They built it up, right? I said that there were trees in the backdrop, right? There were trees around this landscape, right? And the reason why I said there was trees around them is because they were able to rebuild these buildings every 10 years. You're not going to rebuild buildings every 10 years if you can't get access to timber to build with, which is easily extrapolated from the landscape. But the evidence that they're harvesting the timber, right? Finally, the evidence that they're harvesting the timber was back from this image here, right? Which is basically timber. This has been grown for about 3 or 4 years. Then somebody needs, by the way, you've got to rebuild your building there. So you cut it all down, right? And then you keep harvesting the material over and over again, like pollarding and coppicing. Keep building, using it all the time, right? And that reconstruction there is exactly what I was describing last night, but without that reconstruction to show you. And on that note, I'm very happy with that because we've got a nice little end. So we're going to stop sharing and we're going to be happy with that. I'm happy. Hope you're happy. So okay, we've stopped that. Right, okay then, folks. So what we're going to do is find out if there's any questions. That worked. Do you know, I got it. What happened is I had the other images on the other device, and I'm actually so pleased that I was kerfuffled and I went to somewhere else to complete this. And we did stuff, and we come to a nice conclusion on that at the end. And you got nice couple of images, so I'm happy. Right. So Anne, anything you want to say?
So Willie didn't have the dating equipment, you know, when he did it. So it's just been really in the last 50 years then, or 20 years. No, I mean, it's 50 years.
50 odd years, yeah, since the 1990s.
Yeah, since they were able to date things. So no, I think, yes, of course he did the right thing to excavate, and we did the right thing to carry on until we got more information. And you know, because there's a lot of speculation about Glastonbury, and you know, it was nice to have facts, really. You know,
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you. It was thorough. You know, quite a thorough explanation.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'll mention it again. Don't forget the subs, everybody. I'm gonna say something else as well to you. The live show, the first of our live shows, is on Saturday. We're gonna see how that goes.
Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And also, did you know that 2 bananas and a nickel coin and a plug you can charge your mobile phone?
Oh, I saw that. I didn't understand it though.
Well, okay then. I'll demonstrate it for you. Strangely enough, I actually carry a buffalo nickel in my purse.
Oh.
Or is it a dime? Or one or the other?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's a dime, isn't it? It's a dime. I got a dime.
The nickel.
A nickel.
Is it a nickel?
A nickel's
it's a nickel.
A
It's a nickel. Now, how many nickels are in a dime?
2.
Oh, right. There we are.
Okay, fair enough.
It was a threatening bit of nickel.
Oh, shut up, Anne. Right, okay then.
Nope,
It's a different currency, Anne. Right, Anne. Pat, anything from you?
nope, I'm fine. I really like the last image. That was great.
That was good, wasn't it? It seemed to bring it all together. To be honest with you, I was happy with that. Right, okay then. Right. Richard, anything you want to say, darling?
No, very interesting.
Thank you. And yes, Goff.
It was it was interesting, and lots of good images.
Yeah.
And it's not too far away, is it? That site from here?
No, it's not. It's not.
But you may want to go and have a look at that. And then next time I'm see my probation officer, I might be able to go down.
Yeah. Well, we went there once, didn't we, Pat? Did you come with us?
You went to that site?
No.
Yeah, we did. And we did actually go to the site.
We went to Glastonbury for a trip.
Oh, yes,
we did.
To that site.
We stayed there, and then we went to look at the lake land.
Oh,
the
right.
lake
land. No, I've got no questions. It's good. Thanks, Carl.
It's my pleasure. Yeah, we did go down there, but it's good when you've done a presentation like this to sort of go over these things and to do them again. You know, so
yeah, it's been done. You know, it's we didn't do a lot about the actual preservation. I don't think. Maybe there's more being written about it now. I don't know.
Yes, there is. There has been more written about it. Exactly. Do you know? I remember when I went down to Glastonbury the first time. We had a little trip like 30 years ago, and they had a little antique shop there that was actually selling Roman pewter plates, right, big round ones, and I remember I wasn't happy about it. The antique shop's gone now, but very interesting. Right. Anyone want to say anything else before we call it a day tonight?
Night, night.
Okay, well that'll be it then. Okay.
That'll be it.
and,
That'll be it. Yeah.
be reminded that the
Welcome.
world's gone up in smoke, and I'll see you next Wednesday. So I'm going to say good night. Give my love to Alan Goff. Good night, Goff. Good night,
Good
Richard.
night.
Good night, Pat.
Good
Good night,
night.
Jim Boy, and good night, Anne.
Night.
Good night.
Good night. Good
Bye.
night.
Night, boys, girls,
Oh.
shackers.
Oh, why isn't it going? Why isn't
Yeah,
my
Anne, don't worry about it. Get a life, man. Just chill.
Oh, you've
Night,
got to
night,
do
Anne.
something. You've got to do something now, haven't you? There's
No,
no
I gotta get on with
for
it
the
now. I
kids.
gotta go. All right then.
There's no rest. I can't get out. Come on, where's he gone?
Get out.
Oh, I got it now.
Night, Anne.
Good night.
Night. Guys, I'm just going to see if there's anything in the chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Haven't been able to do chat tonight because my technology's all over the place. Do you know, stroll on having a desktop again. My God. Anyway, so let's go on here. And I'm gonna go on. I've got to go on to my YouTube. And I don't know if there's anything in the chat box. My God, there's nothing in the chat box tonight. So right, all right then. Well, I'm gonna call it a day. We got a few likes and stuff, which is good. Do you know what? I did reach 3,050 subscribers tonight, but it's gone back to 3,049. So please subscribe and like. Right, okay then. So I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to look in here and see if there's anything in the boxes. I might have just a little lie down for a couple of minutes, and then I'm just going to crack on with what I need to do. I need to do some plans, and I've got to get them done before midnight. Bang. Right, okay. I'm going to look in the chat box. Nothing in the chat box in 3. Nothing in the chat box on 2. Nothing in the chat box on 1. Chat box is empty. It really, really is. Chat box is empty. So chat box 1, chat box 2, chat box 3, chat box 4, chat box 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Oh, nothing there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nos da chi, diolch yn fawr i chi. Gwelwch